The Supernatural fandom must be the most queer-baited fandom in the history of fandoms. Hi, I'm Brennan, I'm queer, make content about queer culture, and I'm about to make another video about a straight guy. So when I first saw this, I thought that the fandom was just reading into things again, and that, you know, he really didn't even say that he was bisexual, that he just, you know, said anything and the fandom read into it and he had to like clarify that he wasn't coming out, right? And I really thought that it was on the part of the fandom. Then I looked into it, and no, he just straight up came out as bisexual and then took it back a day later on Twitter. I will show you everything. We'll react to the video, we'll react to the tweets, and we can all come to our own conclusions about what the hell this means. But for a little bit of background before I show you everything, Misha Collins is most known within our community, within the queer community, within the fandom community, as Castiel from Supernatural. Supernatural was a incredibly popular TV show, and the most well known, at least by me, for its intense fandom culture. I'm not going to get too much into Supernatural as a fandom. I was on Tumblr at the time of Misha Apocalypse. I am very familiar with Supernatural as a fandom. I was never terribly into Supernatural, but that's not what this video is about. This video is not really about Supernatural, but it does relate. I mean, it is kind of about Supernatural because it happened at a Supernatural convention. This is wild, but what I'm trying to say is I am not the expert on Supernatural, but if you want to have more context and you don't know that much about Supernatural, I think the best video that I can refer you to is Sarah Zed's video on Gate. There's a lot to unpack there that I don't think I will be able to do in this video, because this video is more, we're just talking about what happened on Monday and what happened with our boy Misha. But what I'm trying to say is that Misha Collins is well known for his character in Supernatural, and he's very well versed with fandom culture. He has been the subject of a very devoted fan base for a very long time. So the reason I bring that up is that I just think that he should know better. Like, okay, well, you know what I mean? First of all, the Supernatural fandom is very, very intense. And they are still, even though Supernatural has been over for about a year, I guess, maybe 2 years, I'm not sure. The fans are still very much involved and care deeply for this series and for these actors. And the fans just so happen to be very queer. Like, they come from Tumblr fandom culture. They're young adults now. A lot of them are queer. Like, a lot of the Supernatural fandom is queer. So I just feel like this is a situation that Misha would know how to navigate. I don't know. Like, okay, let me just show you. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so let me explain the context of this. He's at a Supernatural convention. He's doing a Q&A. He is one of the most well-known, well-liked actors from Supernatural. He's one of the main characters, and this character of his, Castiel, was one of the most heavily queer-baited characters in the series of Supernatural. And this is the question that brings him to coming out as bisexual.
Is there anything that any practice that I began cultivating during the pandemic as a form of self-care that I would like to preserve in the post-pandemic era, if that ever comes? Yeah. No.
I know, it's so weird. It doesn't seem like this leads to him coming out as bisexual at all. The question is about the pandemic. The question is about what he did during the pandemic, and this is kind of the tangent that he goes on.
I failed to take care of myself and let myself, like, I was the person who was like sloughing around the house in pajamas that I hadn't washed in 3 weeks. Like, I can't tell you how many days it was like, you haven't been out of the house and you're still
I'm gonna skip some of this because it doesn't matter.
You were wearing when you went to bed the night before.
Just talking about the pandemic.
No, actually, I've been getting a lot healthier since the lockdown.
Okay.
I think I learned some things about myself. I thought I was a real introvert going into the pandemic. No joke. And I realized I don't like being with myself.
Okay, so now he's talking about introverts and extroverts.
So that was good for me to come to.
Okay, so now he's talking about introverts. He's talking about how he thought he was an introvert, and now he feels like he's an extrovert after the pandemic. So that's the context. The question had nothing to do with sexuality. It had to do with the pandemic. Okay, so then here's the tangent that he goes on. This is wild to me.
By a show of force, how many of you would consider yourselves introverts?
Okay, so he asked the audience. Okay.
How many extroverts? And how many bisexuals?
He brought it up.
Where'd that come from? Where the whole
Even the fan recording goes, where did that come from? Like that came out of like he was talking about introverts and extroverts. What he brought it up is the thing. That's the thing. Like everyone thought probably when they saw the headlines that some fan asked him or like tried to trick him into like saying he was bi or whatever. But no, he brought that shit up in front of the Supernatural fandom, which is queer. I'm so like, of course there are straight heterosexual Supernatural fans, but my understanding is the majority of Supernatural fans are also queer or at least very well versed within the queer community. So they can pick up on things. And also like the frustrating thing is like Misha knows that. Like Misha literally says, who's bisexual? And the entire crowd hoots and hollers, right? So he knows it's not like he just found out about this fandom yesterday. He's been a part of this fandom for a very long time, and he's met his fans and he knows what the fandom culture is. And so he knows that they read into everything. They read into everything that he does, regardless of if it's like clear or not. You know, this has been happening for years at this point. You know, he's been the subject of this fan base for years. At a Supernatural fandom convention, he's gonna say something like this? All right, let's watch. This is when he says it.
I'm all
So to recap, he goes, who's an extrovert, who's an introvert, and who's a bisexual. There's 3 things, okay, that he mentioned.
Where'd that come from? Where the whole don't forget.
I'm all See, it would have been weird if I just said, by a show of hands, how many bisexuals in the audience, but I feathered it into another questionnaire and it's totally acceptable. I mean, creation knows, like, I used to ask Stephanie, like, is there a room that I could go that's not?
He came out, is the thing. I can't see how you could read that any other way. And then he just goes on to talk about being an introvert or an extrovert.
And there's nobody else in it, and I can just sit in when I have my breaks off by myself because I would feel kind of overwhelmed by too many people. And now I'm like, where's the green room? Where is everybody? Why aren't my friends in the green room?
What the hell? I don't even, and then here's I guess what he says next.
Yes. Have I continued writing after my book was published?
Yeah, so I guess he doesn't even go back to it. I just he came out. That's wild to me. I don't even know how you could interpret that any other way. So the next thing he does is that he tweets out a clarification that he's not bi. But the thing is, first of all, he was not asked about it. He volunteered that information. It was completely unrelated to the other things he was talking about, and he brought it up. And he said, I am all three. I am an introvert, an extrovert, and a bisexual. And he said I peppered it into another thing so I could move on from it quickly, is what he was saying.
See, it would have been weird if I just said, by a show of hands, how many bisexuals in the audience, but I feathered it into another questionnaire and it's totally acceptable.
He was coming out. Like, there's no other way that I would interpret that anybody else could. I don't even think there's another way that could have been interpreted as him not coming out. He brought it up, is the thing. Like, nobody asked him about it. He wasn't being pushed by a nosy interviewer. He wasn't being pushed by a, fan crossing a line. He brought it up. Which is what makes me think that he was coming out on his own volition to a fandom that is very queer. You know what I mean? Why would he do that? Like, if he's not bi and he's straight, why would he do that? Before I get into like the memes and talking about it too much, I'll show you what his response was on Monday. So this is what he posted on Monday after that clip came out. I think this clip came out on the 22nd, so Friday. And then on Monday, after news outlets started reporting that Misha Collins had come out as bisexual, because how else would you interpret that statement that he made? And this is what he had to say. This is his response. I want to deeply apologize for misspeaking this weekend at a fan convention in New Jersey. When I was talking with the audience, I said that I was all three things: an introvert, an extrovert, and a bisexual. My clumsy intention was to wave off actually discussing my sexuality, but I badly fumbled that and understand that was seen as me coming out as bisexual. This was not my intention, so I need to correct the record. I am not bisexual. I happen to be straight, but I am also a fierce ally, and the last thing I want to do is falsely co-opt the struggle of the LGBTQIA+ community. I believe and fully support that we need to sanctify the human right to express our identities honestly and to be free to love whomever we choose openly. I am deeply sorry for the clumsiness of my language. I want to be a better ally and feel sick to my stomach that I might have done anything to make things worse. I'm trying to learn, trying to do better, and I will keep listening. Thanks, and I'm sorry. I don't even know what to think about this, because it really doesn't seem, I don't know, like, he's an actor, he's been in a part of this fandom for a really, really long time. He knows how they read into things, and he brought it up, is the thing. Like, okay, my clumsy intention was to wave off actually discussing my sexuality. He brought it up. Nobody else brought up bisexuality. He brought it up out of nowhere. So that's like what I'm really confused about. It doesn't make any sense. And this is the pinned tweet, by the way. Anyway, I just don't understand. I wonder if what people are saying. I'm really, like, I don't even know what conclusion to come to on this, to be honest, because it's super confusing. Whoa, the more time goes by and the more I see young queer people not even realizing they're sacrificing part of themselves in order to forgive you. There's still so much unknown here. Again, you knew that queer people have thought for almost a decade that you're queer. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is like, he didn't just like wake up yesterday and get introduced to this fandom. Like, he's been part of this fandom that is very queer and that wanted his character to be queer. And somebody said he did nothing wrong. And the thing is, like, I don't know, like, it's just really weird. Like, this is just a really weird situation. And I tweeted about it. I said, when I first read that Misha accidentally came out, I thought it was just the fans reading into things again, but no, he straight up said he's bisexual and then took it back. That doesn't make any sense. He remembered that he would be sent to super hell if he didn't take it back. from what I understand, he misspoke. I don't think he misspoke is the thing. So a lot of people are saying that he misspoke, but like we all watched that. Like he didn't misspeak. He brought it up. He brought up bisexuality. He said that he was, and then he said he peppered it in to make it less of a big deal, is basically what he was saying. So like, was he making fun of bisexuality? Like, did he think that we would like laugh it off as like a funny joke? So like, that's what I don't understand, is like, it didn't even seem like a sarcastic joke is the thing. Maybe it was. Maybe he was sarcastically joking about being bisexual, but like, it really didn't seem that way. Yeah, it makes no sense. What else could he have meant by that? I love Misha, but my God, how do you fuck that up? Yeah, exactly. Oh, this is a really funny tweet. After decades of why should we have to come out as gay when people never have to come out as straight, Misha Collins makes it his mission to change the world. That's really funny. I just like, yeah, I don't even know what to bring of this other than like just memeing the shit out of it. Yeah, so it's so weird because his statement really had zero ambiguity to it. He basically went, I'm bisexual, and then was like, I misspoke, I meant not that.
I'm gay. Actually, I'm not.
As someone who's been in the SBN world since I was 9, this is a Tuesday for us. Would love to see your take on it. The reactions to everything have been really fascinating. As someone with autism and ADHD, I understand words getting jumbled. However, this hurt a lot of us queer people. Seriously, though, I do hope he wasn't shoved back into the closet by people, though. It's all very weird. Okay, so yeah, this is a weird thing. This is strange. This is strange. Okay, so I think there's a few things that this could be. First of all, it could be, yeah, he really just misspoke and everybody took it to mean something he didn't mean. But I really don't think it, I don't know, like, so I have ADHD, I have a stutter, I misspeak all the time, I'm constantly putting my foot in my mouth, but this just doesn't seem like that, you know? Like, and so I kind of understand, like, I kind of understand being in the heat of the moment and misspeaking, but like, I guess like that doesn't make a lot of sense in this context because he brought it up. Like, I could totally see if a fan asked him about his sexuality and he got really flustered and he made a joke about him being bisexual and tried to move on. But that didn't happen. Like, nobody asked about it. Nobody brought it up. Even the fans, even the people watching as it was happening said that came out of nowhere. Like, where did that even come from? So that's why I think, like, I don't know about the whole I misspoke situation. I mean, like, that's what he said and we can take him at his word, you know, but I don't know. It's just so strange. We'll never really know, right? We'll never really know Misha Collins' life. We'll never really know what he's thinking. But another thing that it could be is that he was trying to test the waters and he came out in front of a fandom that he knew would be accepting and even be excited to know that he's bisexual. And he came out basically in a safe space and in a way that kind of didn't make a very big deal about it. And then after everybody started responding and all the news outlets started covering it and maybe he started hearing from people about it, maybe he got scared or he got overwhelmed and decided that he actually didn't want to be out as bi. And so he decided to take it back, which is, I think, makes more sense than he misspoke. Another thing that people are talking about that's probably, I don't know, I would think that it was pretty unlikely, but another thing that it could be is that his publicist or some manager, somebody in his life, told him to take it back because it was a bad look, or it would typecast him, or it would be bad for his career, or something like that. But in 2022, coming out as bisexual is not necessary, in my opinion. I guess, like, I don't really know, but in my opinion, coming out as bisexual is not going to be terribly detrimental to your career, especially when the majority of the people who support you and watch you and continue to support your career even after Supernatural is over, the majority of that fan base is queer. So I don't see why a publicist would tell him not to do it or tell him to take it back. So I don't know. I guess it's up to you to kind of decide what the ultimate conclusion about this whole situation is. I just feel confused. I understand why people are upset with him. Some people, think it's just a funny meme. Some people who have been part of the fandom and have seen the queer baiting happen over and over again are just like, yeah, this is what he does. This is what these actors do. They mess with our feelings. I don't know. I think that this is a weird situation. I feel sorry for him if he really did want to come out and then got really overwhelmed and took it back. I feel a little frustrated with him if he never intended to come out and he was just making a joke in poor taste. Like, that's pretty frustrating. I don't even know what to even draw from this. Like, it's just so strange. Like, it's such a strange story, and it's strange within the context of Supernatural specifically because that show is so well known for queer baiting. I saw somebody else say that the Supernatural fandom must be the most queer baited fandom in the history of fandoms, and I kind of agree. And like, it's just so unambiguous is the thing. Like, it's so unambiguous. Like, most of the queer baiting that comes out of the Supernatural fandom is a little bit more ambiguous than this. It seemed pretty clear to me that he was coming out. He said, "Are you an extrovert, an introvert, or a bisexual?" "I'm all three." And then kept going. That's not a misspeaking. That's not misspeaking. That doesn't make any sense. And also, he was talking about beforehand, during the pandemic, he was finding out a lot of things about himself.
I think I learned some things about myself.
Maybe he figured out some things about himself during the pandemic, one of those things being his identity. And so he just thought it was just in his brain, so he had to say it, which is very ADHD. That would explain my theory that he does identify as bisexual, but he got overwhelmed and decided to take it back because he didn't want to be out, and if that's the case, I feel sorry for him. But if he was just making a joke about the queer community, if he was just doing like a queer baiting stunt type of thing, then I am very frustrated with him. And if he actually misspoke, I am incredibly confused about how you can mess that up. It's kind of a Schrodinger's coming out story because we don't really know until we open the box, and we don't even know if Misha Collins' box will open. We really have no idea is the thing. We don't know Misha Collins' life. We don't see very much of him. He doesn't volunteer very much information about himself, except in this moment, he volunteered some very explicit information about himself. And that's right, he volunteered it. That's what's so frustrating about this whole situation is he volunteered all of this information. Nobody asked about it, which I think is the most incriminating thing about this whole situation, is that nobody asked about it. He volunteered all of this information on his own. But anyway, like I said, we'll never really know until we know more, until he volunteers more, which he might not. He might just act like this never happened. And yeah, I guess it's up to you to decide what you want to think about this whole situation. There's a lot of different takeaways from this, but one of the main takeaways is don't come out to your audience if you're not queer. Like, I can't believe that has to be said, but if you are not queer or you're not prepared to come out, don't come out. don't come out to your audience, especially don't come out to your audience who you notoriously have queer baited for years, and don't come out to an audience that is majority queer. you know, to a very LGBT audience. I'm gonna react to some memes before I go out. Misha Collins waking up to see Out magazine congratulating him on coming out. Oh, this one, I've seen this one. Misha Collins rates the LGBT community 3 out of 5. Good evening, Bisexual Misha Collins was a 72-hour sociological study conducted by Harvard University. We are now complete with our study. Thank you for your time. Ex-bisexual.
I'm not gay, but if I was, I would want equal rights. I'm not gay, but if I were, I would marry who I like. It's not fair.
That's probably copyrighted. Misha Collins coming out as straight and Elon Musk buying Twitter happening within 24 hours of each other is like, do you guys remember when Castiel went to gay hell during the 2020 election? It's like the shittier cousin of that. Oh shit, back in the closet, back in the closet. Misha Collins opening Twitter to coming out as straight. A world where gay is a norm and straight a minority. Misha Collins after letting us think he was bi for 48 hours. Hope everyone enjoyed it. See, this is the fandom that we're working with. This is the kind of things that they create. So why would Misha Collins come out to a fandom like this? I've never watched an episode of Supernatural, but Misha Collins accidentally coming out as bisexual only to have to backtrack and come out as straight is the funniest, most peak Supernatural thing I've ever heard, and I am beside myself. Yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing. So I was never really a big fan of Supernatural, but I was on Tumblr during the height of its popularity, and I was on Tumblr during Meechapocalypse. Like, I knew what the fandom was like, and the actors knew what the fandom was like all the way back then, 5-6 years ago. So I just like don't understand why he would do something like that. And the most logical explanation to me is that he is bi and he wanted to come out in a safe environment to see how things go. And then after he saw the reaction to it, he got overwhelmed and decided that he doesn't want to be out. That's just the scenario that makes the most sense to me. It makes more sense than him just misspeaking and fumbling over his words, and it makes more sense than his publicist telling him to go back in the closet. But I don't know. I really don't know what to think, honestly, at the end of the day. It's a weird situation, and the ultimate conclusion is don't come out if you don't want to. And especially don't come out if you're not queer. And especially don't come out to an entirely queer audience. Also, especially don't come out to an entirely queer audience that is incredibly used to queer baiting from your show. You know what I mean? Like, I guess that's the only, like, solid conclusion that we can come to from this situation is, like, don't come out if you're not queer, and don't come out if you're not ready, and don't come out if the majority of the people watching you are gonna take you seriously. Don't come out as a joke, especially when the majority of the people listening to you and watching you and liking you and caring about you are queer. You know, like, if it was a joke, like some people are saying it's a joke and he was just joking, that was a bad joke. That joke sucked. It wasn't funny. So anyway, I am looking forward to seeing what all of you think about this whole situation. Please let me know in the comments what you're thinking, because I really don't know what to think about this whole situation ultimately. And subscribe to my channel if you're interested in more conversations about queer culture and queer things happening in the world. And like this video if you found it interesting or funny or whatever. If you want to support my content financially, you can check out my Patreon or my Ko-fi. And if you give a little donation on either of those platforms, you can get access to my Discord. And yeah. I don't even know what to think. I really just don't know what to do with this information. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Have a lovely day. Bye.